Hello guys, and the Russian Federation has reached a new low in their business and economy. Now, in foreign trade, they start using barter more often than money exchange. Barter is a word that I'm not sure many of you know because you live in countries with the healthy economies. But that is a medieval exchange of goods for other goods without money. Usually when you don't have the money. It resembles the 90s, and since 90s the Kremlin avoided barter exchange. But now it is back, specifically in the trade with China, because China perhaps is among the most important saviors of the Russian war machine. There are a lot of fixed cases when they exchanged Russian grain for cars, for various metals and other technologies that they desperately need but cannot produce inside Russia because Russia is not competitive. It is a resource country, but a resource country with great problems. Just think about destroyed oil refineries and the growing fuel crisis. Another important symptom is this growing bankruptcies among the Russian developers, constructors and builders. More than 20% are on the brink of bankruptcy, but experts believe soon this will be 30%. Because the demand for new flats is constantly falling, and this year it fell 46%. That is a lot. Let's discuss all of these very important things that are happening in the Russian economy, which the Central Russian Bank describes as technically in recession and suffering from the great inflation. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia, that is the only working peace plan, subscribe and share these videos to spread the truth and demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine. You know, since the beginning of the Russian war against Ukraine in 2014 and especially after the start of the full-scale invasion in 2022, a lot of sanctions were imposed by the European Union, by the United States and many other countries on Russia. I was surprised to learn that in total there are approximately 25,000. Some of them are effective, some of them are not. All of them have this cumulative effect, but perhaps the best ones target the banking system. And Russia suffered most after these SWIFT transactions were banned in 2022 and in 2024, restrictions that caused Chinese banks abandon a lot of transactions with the Russian banks that were used to avoid the sanctions, which proves they can change a lot. And yes, China can be afraid of the United States if you choose the proper policy, and of course you are not afraid yourself. So since then, with this growing problems on the front lines, with a lot of expenses, they have to pay the soldiers, they have to repair so many things. They are losing income from oil refineries. They planned a blitzkrieg and now it's an exhausting war, and it's exhausting not just for Ukraine but also for Russia. They have serious problems. They don't have enough money, and what is more interesting, not many countries want Russian money, even if they support the Russian war effort like China does, unfortunately. They are afraid of the consequences that may come with this open acceptance of the bloody Russian money, and they are looking for solutions, and barter is the most recent one. This is indeed an exchange of one goods for the sake of other goods and returns us back to the Middle Ages, or as many renowned historians describe, to the Stone Age, and they actually claim that Russia still lives in the Stone Age. Might be, sometimes I agree with that. So anyway, with this barter, of course, you lose a lot, but you don't have a lot of choice. You play by the rules the richer and stronger partner sets, and of course, in our case with Russia, that is China. Subscribe to witness the collapse of the Russian Federation and birth of many new good democratic nations, and I think the process is inevitable. So in 2025, they had a lot of this barter exchanges, mainly offering Russian grain for the sake of various Chinese technologies, specifically their cars. By the way, there is a huge disaster with Russian Avtovaz, that is one of the main car producers. Their sales dropped 36% and they decided to switch to 4-day working week. Let me know, would you like a separate video about that? I have just finished reading an article, including on Moscow Times, and I kind of like it because it tells a lot about the state of Russian car producers, and that is one of the most important spheres of production of this industry for both military and civilians. But they keep buying Chinese cars, maybe they are made to buy it, and they buy them for barter for Russian grain. And it works like that. Some Russian companies buy Russian grain for the Russian money. Then Chinese companies buy cars for yuans, and then they exchange the goods. Oh my God, just don't tell me that Russia is strong and Russia is invincible if they have to use barter. This returns us back directly to 90s. You know that I was born just before the collapse of the USSR, and I love sharing some of my Soviet early memories on my new channel, Anna Danilchuk, like for example in this video. But I do remember barter. It was everywhere because of lack of money, because of problems with the supply and demand of goods and everything. And for example, my parents were dentists and they did not get the salary, and they could get, I don't know, like a lot of sugar as their salary. And the next day, like, I don't know, the next month, something like fishing rods. They didn't need them, but it was a creative way to give you at least something as a salary and to survive. And what did dentists do with fishing rods? Well, theoretically, they would look for people who need fishing rods and exchange them for potatoes. That, for example, I've always loved. So trust me, people, that is a very strong symptom of the economy that I will quote Russian Central Bank once again, because I just love this phrase. Russian economy is technically in recession and suffers from high inflation. And if they are saying it in Russia, you can multiply it by 10 or maybe even 100, because they constantly hide their problems. But if they have to speak about their problems, it means that they are so huge, you cannot hide, what do you say, an elephant in the room. So another important symptom that we can actually talk more about is bankruptcies among the Russian developers, constructors, and people working in the real estate. One more sphere which Donald Trump should read good and understand, that if they have approximately 20% of bankruptcies among developers and constructors, and they believe that by the end of this month it can actually reach more, and all because of the programs that were previously popular, like available housing, building available, not super luxury flats. But nobody's buying them now in Russia because people don't have money and people aren't sure if they have future. Even after bombs and Russian drones, we feel more optimistic than Russians under Putin. And what we observe here is this absence of demand. In the result of it, investments in real estate dropped 44% in 2025. That is a lot. That is almost a half. And Russian banks that experience serious problems, and I'm sure lots of people's deposits may be not in that banks anymore, but fueling the collapsing Russian war economy and war machine. But anyway, 50% of people who came and asked for credits to get this real estate that the developers cannot sell, received denials because of their financial situation. And I'm sure banks already experience severe shortages of money, and they also analyze the situation of people who come to get credits, and they say no. So don't be surprised when this house of cards under the title the Russian Federation will collapse really quickly, because as many smart people say, empires collapse quickly. And those of you who follow the channel, who are subscribed to my Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord, you know that it is a process that has already started. It has started with the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, with the failure of Blitzkrieg, with a lot of Russian weaknesses and problems exposed, and they live on the borrowed time and borrowed money. And with a couple of really good sanctions, similar to 2024 directed at the Chinese banks, we can destroy this evil really quickly. So let's hope for that, let's pray for that, but in the meantime, be attentive, spread the truth so that your friends, your family, your acquaintance did not build the picture of the world, at least of my part of the world, with Moscow in the center, not seeing these symptoms that are way worse actually than they were in 1990s. Barter is not the sign of success. Gasoline crisis is not the sign of success. 1/6 or maybe more of oil refineries destroyed in a month and a half is not a sign of success. Recession and high inflation is not a sign of success. Please share, spread the truth. And thank you so much for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. Thank you for being our ambassadors, choosing our t-shirts, sweatshirts and caps. The link to the merch shop in the description of this video. And most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Thank you for reminding people about our fight and the need to defeat Russia. Slava Ukraini!